Many in the market are now thinking through the consequences of any one country changing currencies on departing the euro. Events are now unfolding, and the redomination risk of debt instruments has been identified by markets as a serious challenge. Gilles Thieffry, a partner at GTLaw Geneva, has studied the legal consequences of the breakup of the European Monetary Union since 1998. To discuss what his research has shown, I spoke to Mr. Thieffry about his analysis of the redomination risk confronting markets.
The research, which is largely based on just reading the treaty, which is the treaty which was signed in Maastricht, is pretty clear. There is absolutely no mechanism set out in the treaty allowing either to expel a member state or for a member state to withdraw from the process.
Now, you have suggested a dual currency system. Could you please explain how that could work?
Clearly, that would have to work by consensus. But what would happen is that, let's take the example of Greece. You would have the euro remaining the currency, for example, of denomination of the debt of the government, and you would have a local currency, let's call it the new drachma, being introduced. Clearly that new drachma value would be set against the euro, would be subject to exchange control, and could be something that could have a value that would be substantially lower than the euro, which, for example, could give a boost to the tourist industry.
I have seen an example used that maybe the new drachma, one new drachma could be equivalent to 1,000 euros. Is this possible?
Of course, I use that example just to be a little bit provocative. At the end of the day, if the Greek government were to set the rate of that new currency, and we were not in the context of a dual currency, but we were just speaking about the country unilaterally deciding to introduce a new currency, then that country can set whatever conversion rate it wishes. I used an example which happened in 1960 with France, when France decided to move from the old franc to the new franc, and when it was decided to basically strike off 2 zeros. And you can do, sovereign can do what it wishes with its currency. That's absolutely well established, at least at law.
As far as the Greek government is concerned, does it have a bargaining chip?
I would say so long as it is master of the governing law of its bonds, so long as the bonds are governed by Greek law, then it has a very strong bargaining chip, because clearly if it were to introduce a new currency and set whatever conversion rate it wishes, it would have far-reaching implications in the balance sheet of the various foreign investors that are holding that debt.
Now, the Greek government has agreed to convert the law that regulates the Greek bonds from Greek to English in return for securing PSI plus includes mowing part of the Greek debt by 50%. Is this conversion in the Greek nation's best interest?
Clearly, not being Greek, I would not dare saying what the Greek best interest is, but clearly once one has agreed to change the governing law of those bonds into English law, then the issue of conversion is quite different, especially if the euro were to continue without Greece. In other words, that makes a withdrawal of Greece out of the euro, I wouldn't say impossible, but then would become extremely difficult, because you would have that massive debt in euros, which would still be continuing and which would not be converted at the rate the Greek wish it to be converted into the new currency of Greece.
How do you view the French-German plan for a reorganization of the European Union?
I would say what it seems to be as a solution, which is really a confirmation and rendering a little bit more strict what was called the Stability Pact, which was already enshrined in the Maastricht Treaty. It is an important event, because clearly that's the first time we are really moving towards a European convergence of budget. Now, you've got to remember that the Stability Pact, which was already present in the Maastricht Treaty, was violated by many countries, including Germany and France. It is not really clear at this stage whether there are any hopes that those kind of stability pacts can be really enforced. The other thing which I'm suggesting in the articles I've published in the past is that I'm not convinced that it is the best way to proceed in terms of European construction to have one or two countries dictating what needs to be done. Because we all know as Europeans that our long and protracted history has proven that trying to unite by one or two countries usually leads to recrimination.
It seems as if time is running short. What may this indecisive action or unilateral decisions lead to?
A unilateral decision, of course, would be something which, by definition, will have consequences in terms of the relations of that country, unilateral action, relations with the rest of the European Union, and clearly would have dire consequences on the economy of that departing country. Of course, it's why a consensus and an orderly solution would be far better, because then you can have what I would call a smooth landing of all those problems. Because the danger of having just austerity measures and stability pacts imposed from the outside is that at one point politically, certain countries will have the choice between civil unrest or trying to do something unilaterally. And then, of course, the consequences on a unilateral basis could be that the country could close itself to the rest of the European Union and potentially the rest of the world. It's in no one's interest, and it's as much as a lawyer as a person who has got children. It can't be true that there are any wisdom in pushing a country into despair and pushing a large part of your youth, especially the youth, in unemployment. Because then history teaches us that from those kind of crises comes out extreme or radical movements, be it right side or on the left-hand side. But at the end of the day, it's usually the people who pay for it.